Welcome to Athens Happens. I'm Ben Peters, a news editor at The New Political. Athens Happens is a weekly news podcast brought to you by TMP reporters dedicated to explaining the nuances of Athens and state politics. You can find new episodes every Friday at thenewpolitical.com, Spotify, SoundCloud, and on YouTube in a video format. Today we're going to discuss the impending closure of an iconic Uptown bookstore, a recent heated faculty senate meeting wherein members slammed Ohio University President Duane Nellis for taking a substantial pay bonus amid a university-wide budget crisis, and a columnist's take on last week's Democratic debate. First, we're going to examine the impending closure of an Uptown bookstore after many other businesses have closed their doors for good, leaving several storefronts empty on Court Street. I'm joined by staff writer Zach Zimmerman. How are you, Zach?
I'm great, Ben. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for asking. So, what bookstore is closed?
So, Follett's University Bookstore, located on Court Street, is closing down. They've been open since 1952, so it is a pretty big deal that it is closing down.
Yeah, this is an iconic bookstore.
It
Been
really
here for
is.
years.
Yeah.
I know I've shopped there several times. So, why is it closing?
To put it in simple terms, they're not doing great business. It's a little more complicated than that. Over the past couple of years, bookstores in general, nationwide, business has been going down. This is just another example of that, but it also has to do with the fact that there are 3 bookstores located in a close vicinity of each other.
What are those 3 stores?
The Little Professor, which is located right next door, and University Bookstore.
Okay. And so how does this closure relate to other Uptown businesses that have closed recently, some as early as a few months ago, Uptown, which including Franco's Pizza Place, Lady B's Fried Chicken, Lots of Stone-Fired Pizza, and the Cornwall Jewelers?
So all of these places have not been doing great business simply because whether it be during the summertime, there's no students here, or if students are in general spending less money, they're all not doing as good of business as they used to. This is another example of that. It's happening all around Athens, especially on Court Street.
Yeah. How are the competing bookstores, like the Little Professor bookstore, able to survive, whereas Follett's is seeming that they can't anymore?
So they all sell things that are similar to each other, textbooks and such, and then they all sell different things. Follett's, I know, sold vinyl albums, which is different. And the other 2 bookstores would sell other items. The Little Professor sold actual books and novels and such. The University Bookstore across the street focused more on clothing and apparel. And so it's not that hard to imagine that those 2 were just selling more than Follett's. And as far as textbooks, those 2, because of that, have become more popular, and they are also selling more textbooks on top of that. So there's not much room for Follett's to bring in as much revenue as they may have used to been able to.
So Follett's is kind of the odd one out of all the bookstores. They're not supposedly supplying the same products that seem to be appealing to students.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, they all sell some items that are very similar, but it is clearly not the most popular choice.
So Ohio University has been experiencing decreasing student enrollment rates over the past several years, which seems to be leading to a slowing local economy. Do you think that this has anything to do with it? Did any of the sources you spoke to mention this?
I think my sources would absolutely agree with it. I interviewed Nicholas Pulcinelli, who's the owner of the Little Professor bookstore, and he put a lot of emphasis on the fact that there are less students here than there used to be, and at least according to him, students are in general spending less and less money as time goes on. So for every business in this area, it's kind of a tough spot because during the summer there's no students here, so you're not able to bring in as much money. You can notice it at even the Wendy's or the Chipotle on Court Street.
Yeah.
They have weird business hours during the summer.
Yeah, Wendy's would close at 5 p.m.
Yeah, and some places will just hardly ever be open, if at all. So if you take that into consideration, on top of all of that, if students are spending less money, then that puts businesses in an even tougher spot, because that time period where they are making most of their money, the revenue becomes less and less. So every time of the year, they're bringing in less money. Over the course of a couple of years, that is really going to hurt businesses, and it's very noticeable in Athens.
Yeah. So how are some Uptown businesses, particularly bookstores like Little Professor or the University Bookstore, working to combat this new phenomenon?
There's a lot of I don't want to say unoriginal ideas, but ideas that you would expect from struggling businesses. Obviously, because Follett's is closing, they're having clearance sales on everything. Clothes and Ohio U gear you can get for 30% off, 50% off. Even some of the more popular businesses here are doing stuff like that. Big Mama's Burritos last night had $1 burritos. So, basic ideas like that to try and get more students to shop at said businesses are temporarily working, at least.
So promotions,
Exactly.
Okay.
But that's only temporarily. If they continue to keep spending less money, that's not going to last. But that's at least the main noticeable way that businesses are combating this economic issue here.
Thank you so much, Zach. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maggie Prosser, editor-in-chief here at The New Political. Each and every day, I work alongside reporters, editors, producers, and managers who put their heart and soul into the journalism we produce. Here at TNP, we have the honor to tell the stories of the residents of this small town we call home. We're looking for local businesses and other ventures to help us continue funding for our independent journalism, including the podcast you're listening to right now. TNP would love to advertise for you through our website, our biannual magazine, or right here on Athens Happens. If interested, please send an inquiry email to execedit@thenewpolitical.com for more details. We hope working together can support both your initiative and fuel TNP's strong, reliable, and essential journalism here in Athens.
Last week, during a heated faculty senate meeting, several members pressed Ohio U President Duane Nellis on the substantial pay bonus and raise he received from the Board of Trustees amid a university-wide budget crisis. Staff writer Abby Neff, who attended the meeting, is here to talk about it. How are you, Abby?
I'm great. How are you, Ben?
I'm excellent. So tell us what happened last week at Faculty Senate.
So last week at Faculty Senate, that was the first meeting of the entire faculty year. Basically what was discussed were there was one resolution that was brought up, but the main source of conflict was President Duane Nellis's raise and his bonus that was received in June of 2019 before the school year had started. People found a lot of problems with that.
How large was the bonus?
$72,000 with a $7,000 raise.
Do you know if that raise was just like a one-time thing or if he's going to keep getting it yearly?
The raise is the same. It's not going to be annual. The bonus is annual. So the Board of Trustee Chair, David Skoll, introduced the resolution, actually, and now his bonus will be 20% of his salary rather than 15% of his salary.
Okay. And so how did the topic of this come up at the meeting? Was this discussed prior, or did senators just kind of naturally bring this up?
Senators naturally brought this up. So President Nellis arrived actually late to the meeting, and he addressed the faculty senate, covering issues and covering timely things that had been happening during the school year. Jackie Wolf, a professor in the Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine, who is also the professional and tenure committee chair, brought the question up. She asked, I'm wondering how in the middle of a financial crisis that the university is facing, you can accept this bonus. So she brought up the issue.
Were there other senators who were also coming at him?
Yes. So following Jackie, a few senators like Bill Reeder, Bill Owens, and Patty Stokes brought up some interesting points. Bill Reeder, a professor in the Scripps School of Communications, brought up the fact that Ohio University spends a lot of money on finding people to hire outside of the faculty to hire up in the administration. And he suggested that the university hire people within the faculty to not only save money, but help the people at Ohio University, especially when departments are losing people because of the budget crisis. Professor Bill Owens, who also works in the College of Arts and Sciences, which is actually taking the biggest hit with the budget crisis, he feels that the state and people in the state see this bonus that President Nellis received as kind of faulty. It's not very warranted, and it doesn't look good for the university. So yeah, those were just a few people that found problems within that.
How did Nellis respond?
So he responded by validating the issuance of the bonus because the Board of Trustees did a performance evaluation on him, and he believed that that performance evaluation warranted his bonus. And so did the Board of Trustees, because he has they claim that he's done a good job at centering dialogue and around inclusivity around the campus. And he also claims that he and his wife give back to the university often.
Give back with
money, yeah,
donations?
Basically.
Okay. And, what did Nellis say about the budget crisis? What did he attribute this to?
Yeah, so a lot of the issue with the budget crisis comes from students like freshmen coming in with college credit. So college credit plus classes and AP courses allow students to get college credit in high school, which does not require them to take gen eds and prereqs, and they can basically graduate either faster or spend less time here at Ohio University. Specifically, the Arts and Sciences Department, they have taken a 20% decrease, according to Nellis, in student credit hours. And he mentioned the fact that there needs to be downsizing in places that are no longer in demand. The university, according to the Athens News, said that the colleges here are expected to cut $19.3 million from their budgets over the next 4 years. So that's something that Nellis addressed, in the fact that we have to face the reality, and students aren't staying here as long, which means that we don't need as much resources as we used to.
Other than the issue of hiring from within the university, did any other members provide possible solutions to help ameliorate the budget crisis?
Not necessarily. A lot of the concern was just, how can my department and my college be saved? Deb Schaefer and Robin Muhammad's the chair of the Faculty Senate, and Deb Schaefer is the vice president of finance and administration. They are holding an informal meeting on October 16th about basically the budget crisis. They're inviting faculty members to ask questions about money and budget. It's called Money Matters. And then other than that, not really.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to this, Abby?
I don't think so. Thank you, though.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Hey all, Sarah Horne here. I'm the digital manager at the New Political. And if I had to pick the best decision I made as a college freshman, joining this outstanding publication would be it. At TMP, I've had the experience of creating both compelling written and digital content. My understanding of local politics has also immensely improved. TMP makes integration between written and digital work for staffers a priority and offers a unique opportunity to have a wide portfolio of clips. Not only that, but working for this publication helped me land an internship in Washington, D.C. as a digital productions intern for The Hill. Our publication is award-winning, independent, nonpartisan, and run by a dedicated team of student journalists. Apart from its content, the New Political has brought me some of my closest friends. The people who I work with make my job fun and fulfilling, and they never cease to amaze me with their kindness, collaborative spirits, and humor. If you too want to join the New Political, come to our all-staff meetings Sunday evening at 7 p.m. in Scripps Hall 210, or reach out to me at shorne, shorne, at thenewpolitical.com.
Please note that the views and opinions of our columnists do not reflect those of the New Political. Last week, 10 Democratic candidates vying for their party's nomination for the presidency gathered in Houston, Texas for the third debate. Our columnist, Matthew Geiger, recently wrote about his disdain for presidential debates and election season. How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing great. I have to moderate myself here so I won't go off the deep end.
Okay. Let's do that. That'd be wise. So what are you thinking about here with this past debate and presidential election season in general?
I said in my article, I think everybody lost. And more specifically, I think the American people lost. It was just a total embarrassment. You had 10 presidential candidates on one stage, all with the opportunity to present their pitch to the American people all over the country, and they all dropped the ball. I mean, none of them seemed like they wanted to be president. They all seemed like they wanted to just show off how cleanly they could speak and how well they could attack the opponent to their left or right. I think it was a total failure. And more specifically, I think like the debate itself is set up to fail. I'll get into this later, but I just think like the 60-second responses, the 15-second rebuttals, we're talking about like nuanced policy. Economic policy, trade policy, foreign policy. These are not subjects that you can just spend like 60 seconds talking about and have somebody understand what you're talking about. It is enough time, however, for Julian Castro and Joe Biden to get into an exchange over something that is completely irrelevant to healthcare, for them to talk about age and just to get off topic is basically what the debate was set up to do, is to have candidates attack each other personally, throw ad hominem across the stage. And in short, it all it does is create sound bites. It creates like these viral video clips that'll get, thousands of retweets and likes on Twitter. It'll go trending. It'll benefit ABC because they'll have all the highlights and all of the ratings from it. But ultimately, the coal miner in West Virginia, the day laborer in Ohio, the single parent in Texas, like they all lost. They all lost on Thursday night.
You mentioned that you said that it didn't seem like any of the candidates on stage wanted to be president. Why do you say that?
I think a president is somebody that understands the power of their own office, and they self-regulate. Not last night, but Thursday night seemed like every single presidential candidate was making promises that they just flat out couldn't keep. And I think one of the best examples of that was when there was an exchange between former Vice President Joe Biden and California Senator Kamala Harris about her plan to use executive action to seize assault weapons. She stated it's one of her campaign platforms that within the first 100 days of her being president, if Congress fails to take action on assault weapons, i.e. like banning them completely, then she'll use executive action to take all of those guns off the street, which is like highly unconstitutional. It would never pass in a court, but she continues to say it because it's not that they necessarily don't want to be president, but that they're not acting presidential. That's the key thing right there. It's that a president understands the laws of our country, they understand the Constitution, and they make promises that they can keep, and they tell the truth. And I just felt like there was so much artificial nonsense going on Thursday. I felt like it was just a lot of people making promises that they couldn't afford to pay for once in office. They're making a lot of promises they know couldn't pass Congress. I think Cory Booker was asked a question on the same topic regarding gun control. I think George Stephanopoulos asked Cory Booker, do you know one Republican in your chamber or the House of Representatives that would support your plan for gun control? And he dodged the question. He didn't answer it. He could not answer it. And when George Stephanopoulos pressed him on that exact answer, he still couldn't give one. It's because he doesn't know a single Republican that would support his plan. It's because these people are making promises that they can't keep to fill the 60-second requirement.
Do you think that there's any value of these candidates making these claims as a way to, you know, signal to their base or the coalition of voters that they're trying to appeal to, like, hey, this is who I am, these are the values that I stand for, and these are the ideals that I am striving to attain as president?
Not in the format that we saw on Thursday night.
Okay.
I think it can be done. I think it can be done, but it should be a conversation, not, 10 podiums, 60 seconds, 30-second responses. That doesn't encourage like a fruitful conversation. It doesn't allow people to really flesh things out. I mean, it's perfect for like a highlight reel. It's perfect for a soundbite. In like a campaign email, you can put the 60 seconds of you slamming somebody across the stage. I mean, that works well. But when it translates to the Oval Office, it ultimately all falls apart.
So you've mentioned a lot that you have issue with ABC, the network that hosted the debate. Why? What do you think ABC did wrong that maybe other networks haven't done wrong, or do you feel strongly that all networks are doing this incorrectly?
I think all networks do it incorrectly. I think it's just a catalyst of like the system that we've put ourselves in. I think whether it's ABC, it's been CNN before, it's been NBC before. If it's a mainstream network, it is primarily motivated by revenue and ratings. It is not motivated by picking or having a format that allows for the best candidate to shine. I think, and this is what I wasn't able to touch on in my piece, my column, I think that a smaller media outlet should be given the opportunity to host these debates. We've been in the same format of we have several lecterns on a stage. We give them, between a minute, 2 minutes to make a statement and then 30 seconds to respond. It just doesn't work. It hasn't produced good candidates. It hasn't produced good nominees. It hasn't produced good presidents, in my opinion. And it hasn't produced good, fruitful conversation on the issues that really matter. So I think that if we give it to smaller networks, smaller outlets, independent podcasters, like I think Joe Rogan would be a great example. Now, could you imagine a 5-hour debate where all the candidates, every single one of them, all 20 of them, sat around at a big table, and it was a calm discussion asked by someone that had no dog in the fight. Joe Rogan obviously wants to make money, wants to grow his brand, but he's not nearly as rating centric as corporate boardrooms in New York City that run ABC, NBC, etc. So I think if we gave smaller, more independent media outlets and podcasters the opportunity to sit down with these candidates and have a discussion, I think you'd learn so much more about them. And just following up real quickly about Joe Rogan, he did a podcast with both Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders.
Andrew Yang too.
And Andrew Yang. And they're far more informative than the debate because it's important questions. And sometimes it's funny too. I mean, it's interesting. It's engaging. It's just like, it's so lame to see these candidates on stage just throwing like, we've seen this before. I mean, like we've seen this, like this happens every 4 years and everybody hates it, but we keep doing it because it makes these companies money and it's just what we have.
So what could networks and the political parties, because the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is working with the networks to host these debates, set the rules for them, set the guidelines on how you qualify. What could they do better, in your opinion, to make these debates more palatable to people who maybe like you, who are craving more in-depth conversation, more nuanced policy discussion?
Mm-hmm. If we're going to stick with networks, I think the biggest thing is that the DNC should actually take a more active role when it comes to moderating and planning these debates. I'm not saying that Tom Perez, the chairman of the DNC, should be the moderator, but what I am saying is like the DNC should work with their base, which is the Democratic voters of this country, and to work with them, send out surveys, have statewide parties vote, have local parties vote about what they think the best path moving forward is. I can't give you the perfect answer, like this is the format that we need, but what I can tell you is that we definitely have a problem right now, and that's what I was identifying in my column. I think the system we have now doesn't work. The lectern system with having 10 people on stage, that just doesn't work. But I do think moving forward, if the Democrats were to, the DNC rather, were to poll their own base and say like, would you guys prefer this or that? A much more democratic party would be the key here. I think that going forward could actually inspire some great conversations. And one more thing, when Governor Jay Inslee of Washington was still in the race, he proposed having a debate specifically on climate change. I think that was a great idea. I think having debates on a specific topic would be fantastic. Having a debate for foreign policy, having a debate for economic policy, having a debate for climate change. Those things could keep candidates on a similar topic, allow for more time on the subject, and I think we would get a much better plethora of answers as a result.
I think it's worth noting that all of those smaller media outlets that you suggested also are openly have an ideological bent. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is need for that rather than something like CNN and the New York Times, who say that they are an unbiased news source?
I mean, it's interesting because like there are, I think, good independent smaller publishers like The Intercept or ProPublica that would do a great job of hosting a debate like that. But I think it makes sense for a liberal publication, like a strong liberal publication, to be hosting like a liberal debate. Obviously, there's like the Young Turks leans heavily towards Bernie Sanders, and then there are others that lean closer to people like Joe Biden. But I still think that, like, I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, everybody knows that CNN and New York Times, even if they claim to be unbiased, certainly have skirted the ethical, like the ethical world of journalism. I mean, they've had their run-ins with being called to, or being criticized and chastised as too far to the left and not being center. So I honestly think that having a network that's openly admitted to being liberal would be much better at hosting a debate full of liberals, because they understand the issues, they're unabashed about them, and they could really tap into someone like the more ideological concerns that Democrats have. Because, like, yes, we're electing a new president, right? Or we are going to try, if you are a Democrat, the goal is to elect a Democratic president. But there are questions that need to be answered in this Democratic primary about, is the Democratic Party going to continue to be the party of moderates and neoliberals, or is it going to become the party of Democratic socialists? These are questions that need to be answered, and I don't think CNN, NBC, or any of these so-called objective outlets are going to do a great job at weeding that out.
Are you going to vote in the Democratic primary this spring?
Tough question, because I'm from Maryland, and that's where I'm registered to vote. Maryland votes in April, usually late April. It was called like the Akella primary last time in 2016. It depends on who's still in the race. I mean, I have like my personal favorites, but even then I still don't like them very much. Like Tulsi Gabbard sticks out to me. Mike Gravel, when he was in the race, stuck out to me. Andrew Yang kind of sticks out to me. But they're not perfect. They're not anywhere near my personal ideology, and I'm also not a Republican either. I'll throw that out there. I think if it came down to like a very moderate candidate versus a very far left candidate, I'd like to actually see a very far left candidate nominated, because I think it would do more for the political discussion than a Joe Biden or like Steve Bullock. So if I were to vote, it would either be because it's a clear split between like slightly left and far left, or it's because one of the candidates that I prefer, although not love, like Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang, to be still in the election and have a shot at winning it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Matthew. We appreciate you coming on.
Yep, thank you so much as well. I had a great time.
And that wraps it up here on Athens Happens. Make sure to tune in every Friday for new episodes that shed light on the politics that impact all of our lives. Remember, you can find the show on the New Political's website, on Spotify, SoundCloud, and on YouTube in a video podcast format. Also, be sure to check out our website at thenewpolitical.com, where we regularly report stories on what really happens here in Athens, and follow @thenewpolitical on social media. Thank you guys so much. See you next week.